All right. So moving on, because I got so many things here. Michelle Tongyai says, is the Paris incident foreshadowing the future horror within the USA? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I don't think I'm giving away any information that ISIS is going to be able to use, but let me tell you something. The problem with Al-Qaeda's critical flaw, and the reason that Al-Qaeda got one good hit on us and basically nothing else until we killed him in the sands of Iraq, mostly. And by the way, this ISIS belongs to Barack Obama. ISIS grew out of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. It's a direct result of Zarqawi, and we had won that war. The last 5 months of George Bush's term, the number of U.S. fatalities in Iraq was 0. We won the war. Barack Obama could not finish a status of forces agreement, left this huge power vacuum. Hillary Clinton goes into Libya, says, we came, we saw, they died. She had her big overthrow there. We overthrew Mubarak, who was a force of stability. And then we go with the red line in Syria. And this power vacuum and our ability to lose a war that we'd won is what created ISIS. And this is all on Barack Obama's plate, every single dime of it. So are there going to be attacks here? Yes, you bet there are going to be attacks here. And I'm concerned about this because I think ISIS is much smarter than Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda had this narcissistic addiction to the big attack, 9/11, the spectacular attack. One of the plots that were foiled was they had a plan to blow up 10 or 12 airliners at the same time over the Pacific and the Atlantic and just blow them up. They wanted the big spectacular things. They wanted the publicity. They thought that was the key. They're absolutely out of their minds. Like I said, I'm not thinking this is news to anybody. You really want to screw up this country? You remember what those Muslims, the 2 DC snipers did? 2 guys in the back of a truck opening fire randomly while people are pumping their gas. They immobilized 3 states. People wouldn't go outdoors because they were so terrified that they were going to get shot. If I was ISIS, I'm saying this only because I'm an American patriot and I want to defend against this, right? If ISIS, and this is what I think they're going to do, if you had 50 warriors, you could try to put them on an airplane and fly it into the capital or whatever, or you could take 50 guys with AK-47s, you could go to 50 malls on Black Friday, and you could shoot up 50 malls full of American shoppers on Black Friday, and you watch what that would do to this country. You just watch what would do to this country. And I think that's what they're going to do. I think they understand that it's not the big spectaculars, because everybody was horrified by 9/11, but the only people who were affected by 9/11 were the people in those buildings that were directly affected. If you get the feeling that you can't go to the shopping mall, your kids can't go to school, if you get the feeling that you can't pump gas without getting shot, that is going to have an effect on this country. So, let me say this about the American attack. I do think, however, that ISIS is smart enough to understand. I think they're very smart people. I think ISIS's strategy is pretty simple. ISIS is going to conquer Europe because they are convinced that Europe will not fight back. And so they're going to basically conquer Europe. Once they conquer Europe, either demographically or through intimidation or whatever, of all the things I saw during the last week, it's these guys basically, saying, your daughter is going to marry a Muslim man. Your daughter's going to be married to a bearded man. We're outbreeding you. We're outproducing you. Your son is going to be a Muslim. That made my blood run cold because I think they're right. One of these guys, one of these smug jihadis, was basically saying, well, do they have a chance? Do the French have a chance? Yeah. If each one of them takes 4 wives and has 5, 6 children each, then maybe they have a chance, but I don't think so. He's right. He's right. So I think ISIS is going to concentrate on Europe because they understand Europe is weak. Once Europe goes down, guess what happens? If they take over either through the ballot box in 10 or 15 years, or if they just intimidate the people enough so that they just give up, because most people would rather submit than fight, especially over there because the fighters are over here. They left hundreds of years ago. Then you've got Europe with thousands of nuclear weapons. I don't know if they know how to use them, but that's not something I'm looking forward to. I think ISIS is smart enough to understand that if they launch a series of terror attacks against the U.S., at least now, that America will fight back, even with this president. They saw what happened after 9/11. We went over there and killed 40, 50,000 of their best fighters in Iraq. We basically knocked Afghanistan off the table. We knocked Iraq off the table until President Obama gave it back to him. So, yeah. And by the way, I've seen a couple people talking about something that I think is absolutely critical to fighting these people. Critical. And once again, the laboratory of history proves that this is not just a theory on my part. We are dealing, when we're talking about the radicals, we are dealing with fanatics. Their lives are miserable. They're not allowed to drink. They're not allowed to have sex. They're not allowed to hold hands. They're not allowed to listen to music. They're not allowed to dance. They're not allowed to do anything. They're just males that are filled with rage, and they're ready to die to go to get their 72 virgins in heaven. By the way, don't you find it odd? Don't you find it just quite odd and strangely illuminating about the Muslim religion that their version of paradise is Vegas? Don't you find that odd? That the Muslim paradise is Las Vegas. That here on earth, they're not allowed to do any of these things, but when they get to paradise, they have 72 beautiful women that they can have sex with all the time with impunity. They get to drink. They get to do whatever they want to. That's what I really think. That's what they can't stand about us, is that we have their paradise here on earth. So, gosh, what was my train of thought here? God, I hate it when that happens. It doesn't happen too often. Oh golly, that just drives me nuts. In any event, it'll come back to me. We have to defeat these people ideologically, and we can defeat them ideologically because we got a better story. So let's move on, and hopefully what I was about to say will come back to me here. This is an important point, very minor point. Get through this pretty fast here. Oh, I'm sorry, it was about whether there'd be a terrorist attack here in the U.S. I think they understand that if they were to do something like that, we've still got some fight in us. They saw what we did after 9/11. I don't think they're stupid enough to do that just yet. I think what they're going to do is pound the daylights out of Europe. If they launch major terrorist attacks here in this country, it will reactivate that American response. And I'll tell you something, the climate now in America is not the same as the climate was in 2001. In 2001, during the 9/11 attacks, when we woke up that morning and we found out that we had been at war with Islam since at least 1979, and we suddenly realized, no, they're serious about it. In 2001, when we were told that it's a religion of peace, that this is hijacking the religion, that this is an anomaly, a one-off, and that this is just a bunch of lunatics, we believed it. And we gave them the benefit of the doubt. And since then, we've seen hundreds more attacks like this. I think our patience with Islam, and I don't mean just America, I think the West. I'm seeing it in Germany, I'm seeing it in France. They have maxed out their card. I think if there's if France is launching airstrikes and we're not, then that's telling me that they have had enough. And so it gets to be kind of interesting when we get down to these details. But man, if you look at what's happening in Europe and you see what's potentially happening here, it's just terrifying.